Hi guys, welcome to Learn Electronics Repair, and we're going to continue with this amplifier. So, previous video we figured out we had some good working MOSFETs we can put in. We need one MOSFET, I have 3 of them, okay. This is the little board from the back of the amplifier module, goes on here. And I mentioned on the previous video, which I'm going to link of course because we've jumped in the middle here, so look in the video description. I mentioned this kind of looks like blackened, but if you look at this thing, it's covered in some sort of like coating, completely covered in it. This looks like dust or dirt, so I think that black colour is actually the colour of the coating if I clean all this dust off. But you would think that this coating actually protects the components from the dust anyway. I could have a look inside this one, but I would have to take this one apart, this amplifier module, okay, another one of these. But this one is working, so at the moment I'm a bit loath to do so. Although it's so long since I looked at this, I may forget how to put this thing back together again. Yeah. Hopefully the video will show me how I took it apart. So I'm not sure there's any reason to look at that one and compare it with this one. And secondly, if this thing is faulty, I can't really repair it anyway. I don't see how I could repair this. I think there may even be some components in between. No, possibly not. I think that's just the connections actually in between. Okay. Let's fit the replacement MOSFET, or at least get it ready to fit. It may actually be better to bolt this all to the heatsink first and then actually fit it, so I know it's sitting flat. But you can see on this other one the center pin is being cut off. That's okay because the tab is also the center pin. So they're obviously using the tab here to make the connection. So we can get rid of that. Okay. The solder is actually on this side, all the pads are, there's no pads under there. So yeah, I think this is going to be better to bolt this down first. Although it's a little bit fiddly because you can't so easily get it through. Oh, you can actually, yeah, just put it in and twist it. Okay, so we need to put this thing back together. I think the easiest thing for me to do is look at the old video to see if I showed how I took it apart. So I have a bag with some various screws in here. I have another bag with lots of fittings and parts in there. So that's basically what we need to put this back together. I've had a look at the other video, so I've got some idea. So the first thing we need to do is to bolt the heat sinks back on, okay, to these transistors. I can see from the other video there are some silver coloured screws which go in here, okay, and here. In fact, not only that, but you can see the other one. Yeah, so you see the 4 screws that hold that together. You can see the screws which hold this together. So I'll put this heatsink back on and then we'll effectively put the other screws in, leave this one. I can solder this in and then effectively screw it afterwards. So I'm hoping that this bag has all the bits for doing that. Of course, I'll probably do this so far and then realise there's something else I should have done first and have to take it all apart again. But hey, that's what happens, yeah. I'll also add some fresh thermal compound as well. There are no mica washers or thermal pads under these, insulating the devices from the heatsink. There are a couple of good indications why that is how it should be. Firstly, if there were some, I would have put them in the bag with the rest of the fittings. So these are clearly the fittings for the amplifier. Okay, I've kept them separate from this lot for the actual main chassis, I would think, and fitting these boards, stacking them together. Secondly, the actual amplifier heat sinks are separate too, okay, they don't touch each other. So that means one of these can have the positive HT, 50-100 volts, yeah, that could have the negative. So the actual heatsink is at the potential, that's why it's bolted to the collectors of the transistors. Or in this case, I think in actual fact both these are at the same potential, this amplifier being the positive half, this being the negative half, or vice versa. Okay, so all positive, all negative, whichever way around. And the other reason is because of this. So this fits over the entire amplifier, which again tells me that thing, metalwork, is at high potential. That's why that's on there. So for all those reasons, yeah, there aren't any washers under these. Okay, so I was obviously quite organised when I dismantled this. I had all the fittings for this in one bag. I wasn't sure about this little metal clip, but now I know. These are obviously a mirror image thing, but you can see this one is the diode, and that is the diode, and this is the MOSFET, and this is the MOSFET. So the MOSFET had the clip on here, it must have the clip on here, and I also put a little arrow there pointing at it, so it was probably to tell me that. Okay, then we have this bag full of bits here. So I was looking at the video before I dismantled this. I showed it very clearly, as luck would have it. So these screw through here. Okay, there's a little pillar thing in between. You can see it down there, the short brass pillars. I have 4 of these things. These actually just wedge in between. So we'll try and stack this together. Yeah, these are just little cushions, if you like. Okay. Like so. And then these long ones, these screw onto these. So this basically sandwiches the whole thing together. Doesn't seem quite level for some reason. Just put these on, let's see. I'll tighten them up afterwards. Okay. I see what I've done. I've got this thing wedged in where those connections are, so it won't sit flat. So this one goes in here. Now it's much more level. In fact, I think that shows where the rubber pad goes. I'll try tighten these down. If these things won't stay still, they probably need a little bit of glue. Yeah, they're moving. I think I'll stick them down first. Okay, so that's back together. Assembled. It is so lucky I had the recording from the first time. I think this just goes to show, actually, it makes a point that when you're working on something, you have no idea how long it's going to be before you might complete the job. I mean, you know, just depending on the customer, really, in this case. Okay, this looks about right. Yeah, a bit tight, but it's on. Okay, so I don't really need to glue this. It was glued. I mean, I could put a bit of glue on, but once it's bolted into the unit, it's not going to be a problem, I don't think. Okay, there's a couple of screws here. There must be something else that goes there. And this is like a sleeve that goes over this part. I have this on the right way round, according to what I can see on the video, by the way, but I'm not sure now that actually comes out that way. Let's see. Yeah, it probably does if we just slide this over here. Yeah, that looks good. So that also holds this together. Right, let's get this into the unit and let's see if this actually works now. Okay, so that's back in place. Yeah, all this is plugged in. The colours are actually marked on the PCB that compared to this side, because apparently this brown wire is grey, but the rest of them were marked red, yellow, blue at least. Okay, and I didn't unplug these, so I know it's the right way around, so that's okay. The problem is this thing, this white wire. So this is the speaker out, There's another one down there. This goes into the board here, but it's so thick I'm struggling. I can't actually get it back into the hole properly. So I'm going to have to take this PCB off as well. Now, you may not think that's a problem. I mean, these connectors on the back, yeah, these will unscrew. The switches are just pushed through the slots. The problem is these, so I have to unbolt all these from here, unscrew them, and of course that's in the way. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, why wouldn't it be in the way? Yeah, so what a pain in the butt, but I don't think I'm going to do this any other way easily, although that isn't easy either. Yeah, rock in a hard place. Fortunately, I'm a man with the tool to do the job. Yeah, the amount of tools you need for this sort of work, honestly. Again, yeah, more tools because I can't get the screwdriver down there. Yeah, I've had a shorter one. And I don't feel like taking this thing out. Yeah, that should do it. Okay, well, with a little bit of determination. Yeah. Okay, so we can see how this is wired up now, the pairs of wires. I can get to this side of it now. I cut off the bit with a blob of solder because I couldn't get it through the hole. Maybe if I got to this first and got the thing hot, I would have done it easier. Okay, I'll try cutting this like so it narrows to a point a little bit. See if we can get all the strands, or cores I suppose they're called, through the hole. Okay. Not quite. Okay, I'll have another go, but I'm sure I will manage to do this. Okay, so I'm struggling to get the last just few strands in there. They'll push against this side, the metal. So I think what we'll do is we'll get this into here as best as we can. I'll put some heat shrink, I'll just slide it a long way up the cable till it cools down, then we'll slide the heat shrink down and just cover over that little bit. Okay, should be okay, I would think. Right, let's try this. Yep, it's a good fit. So get that well out of the way and then we'll solder this. I'll use that big chunky soldering iron I bought, the tip, the C470. I think that'll be the best thing for this job. And it'll probably help if I just warm the thing up with hot air as well. Okay. I think that'll be good. Yeah, maybe a little bit more heat onto that, you know, so again we'll warm it up. In fact, why not use this technique? That should do it nicely. Okay, yeah, that's worked nicely. Right, let's put this thing back together. And just look at the state of these switches, by the way. They didn't say there was a problem with them, but Perhaps I shouldn't move them, you know, I should perhaps just leave them where they are. I mean, we could change them, but he didn't mention the problem. So that one I just mentioned, that is the ground lift, so you can actually disconnect the ground. You do that if you get your hum on the speakers usually. This one switches the clip limiter off or on, and he's got it set to off. I wonder if that's why the thing blew up. I'll mention it to him. This one is the low frequency filter, which is set to 5 Hz, so the lowest option. Okay, and this one is set to stereo. I do wonder about that clip limiter, but you know what? Not my monkey, not my circus. Yeah. Okay, right. I'll at least clean this up a bit before I put it back together. Yeah, it looks a little bit better now at least. You can see inside these switches, so you can get some idea what the contacts are like. Actually don't look too bad. Not as corroded as the outer shell is, at least. These two, you can see 12 pin, so these are 4-pole 2-way, okay, but the other two, if we just get the zoom out a little bit, yeah, these two, these are 3-position, okay, so those would be easy enough to replace. These might be a bit more trouble to find replacements, so I hope there isn't a problem. He didn't say there was, so well. Right, let's put it back together and see if it works. Okay, so we have a few cameras set up. Light bulb over there, that's just the 65 watt one. This is not a particularly high powered amplifier. Let's see what happens. So switched on there, that's set to limit. You can see the lights on the front of the amplifier. What's it do? Well, it goes bright then dim, but nothing happened here. Okay, nothing happened on the lights. First one is bridge, second one is peak, and the third one is signal. So quite possibly nothing would happen. I think we're going to have to connect a signal to this and just try it. Okay, I have my speakers attached. The fans are running. Let's see. We have one badly distorted channel. Okay, so both channels are working. One is distorted. Let me just see which one. And it appears to be the one that I've repaired, that one. Okay, I've just unplugged that one. Let's just try it again. So I've disconnected the speaker. Let's try with the Northern Soul track I normally use. Well, what I can say is the peak light on that channel is on. Okay, so this channel, the peak light comes on and stays on. So that one is distorted. I'll connect the speaker again. Okay, so just a distorted channel now. The peak light goes out when the speaker's attached. Oh yeah, you can hear that. Okay. A couple of interesting things then. When I disconnect the speaker from the channel which is distorting, the peak light comes on and stays on, even when there's no audio. Okay. When I disconnect the speaker from the working channel, the peak light stays out. When I connect the speaker on the distorting channel, the peak light stays out and it's horrible sound. So there's some problem with that. Question is what? Well, I think we can take advantage here of the fact that we have the two amplifiers. So we know these split into two halves, these boards, okay, and we know there's a board that fits on the back which is like all potted up and stuff, yeah, which I can't repair. I mean, I don't think that is a repairable item, yeah. So I think what we should do, I'll just check the fuses, by the way, first. I tested them before. I will test the fuses down there. There's one on each voltage rail. But if they're okay, I think what we'll do is we'll take both amplifier modules out. We can test them both on this side because we know everything else is okay on this side, because it could be a problem on the input board or something. And if the problem isn't the amplifier, then I'd swap some parts around. So I'd take that board off the back first and stick it on that one, yeah. If it's that board, then kind of game over really with this, okay. So let's do it that way. And first of all, let's just check all these fuses. That one's okay. 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 That one is not okay. That one is not okay. That one is okay. That one's okay. I'll just go back to these two again. Not okay. Not okay. So that would explain the distortion, because it would appear that I only have like either the negative or the positive, one or the other, yeah. I think they're marked. VCC high, VCC low at H and L. Is this VDD? I'm hoping it is. VDDL, VDD low. So these will be the negative, these will be the positive. So there's no power coming on these two. Yeah, you can see it a bit clearer this side actually. So the VDD will be the negative. It's a bit of a strange nomenclature they've used here, because normally speaking, VCC is voltage to the collectors. So you would think that'd be VEE. But they've put VDD, which is like voltage to the drains, which is also positive. So, yeah. You know what? Let's just measure the voltages to be absolutely sure. Okay, well, this is a little bit strange. I have two red and a black here, so you think the black is a centre tap. That's a winding. That's a bridge rectifier. We have another bridge rectifier here with two red and a black. So I would have thought the two blacks are connected to each other, effectively ground. And they don't. Look, there's a capacitor charging somewhere. This black connects to the metalwork of the potentiometer. No, it doesn't. This black doesn't. So I'm not exactly sure where ground is on this. Okay, so referring to my previous video, blown fuses but not short circuit, okay, and the fuses blown were these two, so these were already blown anyway. That is, I would expect, related to that short circuit MOSFET. Yeah, I can't think of any other particular reason why they would be blown. Nothing else seems to be wrong with the amplifier, so we're gonna have to change those fuses. Now these are soldered in ones, so I need to see if I can find some I can solder wires to. But you know what, this board's going to have to come out now. And of course I can't get these things to unplug because they're glued. And also of course the screws were really rusty, and that one, yeah, is like that. And just to make this a joke, yeah, there's no like screws from underneath into the pillars, whatever these go into. Yeah, so that is now also a problem, so I can't get the board out. I'll have to drill it out, and then of course there's metal shards everywhere. Let's see if I get lucky. It appears Richard got lucky this time. Okay. Well, that saved a whole load of pain. Of course, I still have the problem with these glued in connectors and hardly any space to work. Let's see what we can do. Maybe we get lucky again. This will probably come off and pull the whole plastic thing, leaving the pins in the board. That's not what I really want to do, but you know, I may have to do it that way. Oh, now it's broke. Anyway. It came out though. Wasn't good for the connector, but what can you do, guys? Well, actually, you tell me down there what I'm doing wrong here. Yeah? I mean, this is what this is all about. Yeah. So, similar technique, I think. Yeah, similar similar technique to the one that just destroyed the connector pretty much. So we'll do the same thing again, of course. Mainly because I've done this sort of method a lot of times and it doesn't normally cause a problem like that. Oh, that one came out, yeah. That one came out, right. Without destroying the connector too much. Other side. Let's have that lot out of the way. Can we do this one? Well, we can actually probably now, no we can't because of that one in the middle, lift the board out a bit, but we can't. So again, to kind of get this into there, and then I think we might have this one. Yeah, that one came out nicely. I'm learning, yeah, I'm learning fast, you can see that. Less and less damage. Yeah, okay. And then, of course, this one. Oh, the one at the back as well. That doesn't look quite so bad. No, that was okay. Let's see. I might be able to unplug this one at the other end. No, this is like the type where that's fixed to the board and won't come off. You have to unplug from this end. I'm thinking it might make some sense to take this board out as well, but you know, even that looks like it's going to be hard to get some of the screws. Let's see, how's this held in? Maybe this will just come out. Just rock it backwards and forwards a little bit. Little plastic clip here, of course. Yeah, got it. Huh. Oh my god. So those big wires are soldered on. Typical. They go to this backboard, so that's where I had some problems resoldering that one in. Can we do it from this end? Do we have to do? Yeah, maybe we don't need to do that, you know. Maybe now we can just get these fuses out. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can get the fuses, they're soldered there, but of course the other end is soldered under here, so this has to come off first before I can get the fuse out. I'm loving this thing, can you tell? Okay, gotta be done. Here we go. Smile, yeah. Don't worry, be happy. That came off easily enough. I checked the capacitors were all discharged, by the way, with having those open circuit fuses. I think the voltage rails go to both amplifiers, so they should have been discharged, but you know, it makes sense to check these things, yeah. Okay. Let's try this. I may have to add some welded solder to do this. Okay. Of course it won't come out. Bit of welded solder. Get something underneath it. Yeah. It's out. Both ends, okay. Other one. Welded solder. Out. Yeah, both ends. We can probably clean those holes now, ready for when we put new ones in. Another hole should be clean anyway. Okay, so 8 amp. Clearly blown, we can see that, but there was a good reason for that with the fault that we found. 250 volt. These don't actually specify if they're fast blow or slow blow. There's some little markings on this end, but what does that say? Anything? It might say SB, like slow blow, but I'm not sure. Possibly SB, UL. Anybody know what they are? Let's have a look at the other one. Eight amp, 250 volt. UL. It does look like an SB. Normally they say T if they like slow blow. One thing for sure, they are a lot smaller than a 20mm fuse. Okay, much smaller. That's a 20mm fuse, believe it or not. I can measure the length and probably figure out what they are. They look more like 10mm. And then the other thing to be sure is that I have lots and lots of fuses, and this is just one drawer of them. So this is 4 amp, 6 amp, 3.15, 6.3, 13, etc. But what I don't have is any 8 amp. Right, so these are 10mm fuses with wire ends on them. Let's have a look if we can get these things. Okay, I had a look, so you can buy these things. You can also buy packs like this, 224 plus another 185, so just over €4. Be here in a few weeks. Okay, so that includes 8 amp. These also have 8 amp, which is a similar price, just for a pack of 20. And these will arrive here sooner. Okay, so I've ordered some fuses. I'm going to order them anyway, regardless of what happens at this point, because no doubt I will need these in the future. If I see stuff like that and it's cheap and I don't have in stock, I just get a range of them. I'll tell you what, when you do need some, it's really nice to have them there, yeah? So what I've done is I've just tagged a couple fuse holders on here. You can see this. These are 6 amp fuses, but I'm not running this at high power, so it shouldn't draw a lot of power if there isn't a fault in the amplifier. And I'm just going to try this now to see if this actually does work okay. So I've put the current limiting light bulb into the circuit again, and we see it over there. Okay, let's see what this does now. Bright and then dim. So that's basically what it did before. So we can switch that out. So we direct onto mains now, and I'll connect my speakers back up, the audio source again, and let's see what it does now. See if it stops this distortion problem. Okay, so it's working, it's not distorting anymore, but I have noticed another little problem. So what I notice is this fan is like spinning and then not spinning, and the one in front of the amplifier isn't spinning at all. You can see this one anyway, so we'll just power it on again. That's spinning now. Oh no, they're both spinning now. All four. Interesting. So they were spinning then. I'll have to try this, I'll have to give it a bit of a run. So what I'll do is, because I'm waiting for fuses, and I know now that that will fix the amplifier, I'll order some fans as well. I'll just check to see what voltage they are, if there's some markings on, otherwise I'll just measure the voltage going to them. And then by the time the fuses arrive, the fans should be here as well. I mean, that's a good explanation as to why this failed, actually, if the fans weren't working properly. So you may not see this one again, guys. It's obviously working, it is repaired. Changing the fans isn't really a video, yeah, and I only need to solder the correct fuses in. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down there what you thought about it, and I look forward to seeing you all soon again on Learn Electronics Repair. Ciao for now, guys.